In 2014, a free diver was dragged into the deep ocean by a killer whale, and here's what happened to him. Levi Gavin was 23 years old and he was a free diver from New Zealand. He dives into deep waters on one breath without any breathing apparatus. Descending deep into the ocean while holding your breath sounds too risky and scary for most people, including myself. But Levi is an exception like every other free diver. He's not scared, but most importantly, he was pretty good at it. So on February 10th of 2014, he was free diving with his cousin collecting kina and crayfish at Hora Hora estuary 30 kilometers east of Whangarei. By the time they were almost done with the dive, they saw a part of orcas about 300 meters away from where they were at the time. This was basically a sign that it was about time for them to get to shore. So both Levi and his cousin started to make their way towards the shore. And that's when an orca had swooped in too fast for them to evade it. It appeared out of nowhere and grabbed the catch bag that was attached to Levi's right arm. It caught him off guard. He didn't have time to react, but even if he did, he wouldn't have been able to do much against that orca. The second he was grabbed by it, his goggles came off and kept flapping on his face, but the orca just kept going. He tried to open his eyes, but all he could see was little white bubbles. It felt too fast for him to process, so he just closed his eyes and tried to stay calm and relaxed. Yeah, that sounds impossible. I mean, imagine trying to feel calm and collected as you are being dragged deeper and deeper underwater by a giant sea creature. I mean, it's understandable. Any human would just freak out and just die probably. But well, Levi was different. His instincts were so good that he was able to stay calm and level-headed and not panic at all. By doing so, he did not waste any more of his energy. Otherwise, he could have used his last breath, which was the only air he had to survive. He couldn't even think about anything at the time. It was that intense. But this angry orca just kept dragging him beneath the water for almost a whole minute. However, miraculously, the rope connecting him to the catch bag came undone, and he was able to free himself from the death spiral. Luckily, he was not hurt at all. He didn't waste a single second and popped off his weight belt to float to the surface. But as he was getting closer to the surface, he couldn't feel his arm. It was actually dead. So once he got to the surface, he was unable to swim, because with the use of only one hand, you can't swim, you can't simply do anything. But luckily, his cousin was about 30 meters away from where he had emerged from the water. The cousin was horrified seeing what just happened to Levi, but the second he saw Levi pop up, he rushed to him. However though, Levi couldn't see his cousin, but he could hear his flippers from a mile away, trying to get to him and save him. So as soon as cousin got there, he jumped behind Levi and lay behind him, held him and kept kicking his flippers to keep buoyant, so that Levi could have some time to relax and rest and breathe. His gear was never retrieved, but eventually they made it to shore. A day later, he had to be taken to the Whangarei hospital, where he stayed briefly while doctors determined that he did not have any water in his lungs. After some time, Levi said that day everything was going south. Everything was meant to stop them from going out. His cousin also didn't want to go out. In fact, once he agreed to come out, and then when they actually arrived at the dive spot, the cousin offered Levi a knife to strap around his leg. But still, Levi had said no to that. But if he had taken that knife, he could have cut the rope and freed himself. But well, all in all, considering Levi's epic survival, things ultimately didn't go as wrong as they could have. Apparently, there have been more than a dozen deaths and serious injuries from attacks by orcas in captivity. However, according to experts, attacks by orcas in the wild are very rare. According to Whale Rescue co-founder Joe Halliday, orcas are just like humans. They are extremely intelligent and curious about their surroundings and lived in tight social structures. Fewer than 200 individual killer whales have been recorded as living in the waters around New Zealand.